But I come to a place like this. I'm in this space at the moment, and it changes everything. Everything I'm doing just shifts everything. I just suddenly off on a different tangent. So I like working in different places, very much. I like working in overseas locations too, a lot. This week it's been all about fabric. I've been designing fabric. And I have to keep myself occupied. I have to keep myself focused on something, or I go a bit bonky.
Bombs away. I promise I can't take it. Let them fall like rain on my heart. And don't hold back today. I promise I will make it right. I'll take all of the blame. Oh, we used to fight on the same side, us against the rest. Now we're digging trenches and sweating, aiming for the chest. You are no longer happy. I cannot make you love me, so let's pull the pin, toss it to the wind, let the sparks ignite. Bombs away. I promise I can take it. Let them fall like rain on my heart. And don't hold back today. I promise I will make it right. I'll take all of the blame. So bombs away. Oh, bombs away. Oh, every single solitary second feels like we are at war. Oh, and it's always a battle just to be together when we're keeping score. Oh, I am no longer happy. You are no longer trying to make this work. Faces in the dirt, nothing left to hide. Bombs away. I promise I can take it. Let them fall like rain on my heart. And don't hold back today. I promise I will make it right. I'll take all of the blame. So bounce away.
Creativity is a drug. It's like drugs. It's like, you do something and you get being off it, So I think I'm just continuously just feeding off this energy, and it gives me a vibe, and it excites me, and But I'm really interested how things develop. This is very interesting to me because I saw this artwork that I'd made and I'd given it to someone a long, long time ago, and it just wasn't anything really dramatic, and it wasn't anything terribly resolved, and it was a bit naked and a bit kind of uncertain about itself. And then I saw it after like 20 years. I saw this thing. I thought, my God, that is so beautiful. That is so beautiful. So, it's really interesting how a work develops its own life. So what was like the ugly duckling has become a beautiful swan. It's a cliche, but it's really interesting. This thing is incredibly beautiful. It's become beautiful. Yeah, I'm not convinced it's an invention. I just think it's. Everything that humans do is an invention. But I'm not particularly interested in biblical sense of truth or whatever. But kind of philosophically, I think it's very interesting that. I'm not sure who it is. It might be Brené Brown or someone like that. Or talks about the way that dishonesty limits possibility. And if I was thinking about, I did some shitty things in my 20s, I think, and I just think I've really paid a price. And I don't like to use the word paid a price, but yeah, there's been a consequence. To those, to the, when you do shit, I think you pay. I think whether it's karma or whether it's Islam, they talk about you're hostage to your deeds and yeah. So, I think very honest frameworks are really promote possibility, put it that way. No, look, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I think that the thing was we're a bit obsessed by being busy, I think. So I'm not kind of be one for saying, do as fit as much as you can, and all that sort of stuff. I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know what to say, because it sounds like too much of a cliche. I think it's about opportunities, it's about creating opportunities, I think. I'm very, very wary of words. Words are fun. And they're, and they give us opportunities to have fun. And they also give us opportunities to make each other, to get angry or get sad or whatever, but they're just, in themselves, they don't. A tree doesn't know it's a tree, sky doesn't know it's sky, they're just words, they're just constructions that we use to kind of feel our way in this crazy cosmos we live in. But any of those words are kind of thin ice. And when the ways that you shape them are ways of creating power structures or fulfilling desires or defending ideas or seduction or whatever, but they are constructions of what, they're not in themselves, none of them hold water. They're all leaky boats. Is it Wittgenstein? Wittgenstein? He talks about the last sort of, boundary of philosophies around language. I think that's what he was on about. Like I said, the difference between water and ice is a fraction of a degree. 1 minute it's soft, and this fraction of a degree later, and it's hard. So the tipping point's tiny. It's this tiny infinitesimal point. No, I think that's what scares me about global warming, is that I think that, you can reach those really critical things, and it just that tiny little bit too much, and it just slides away, really. I'll tell you what I think about this is that, a lot of people when they're very young, it's a 20s thing often, is sort of, so scared of having their hearts broken. Heartbreak is culturally like this terrible thing that you must avoid. And for some reason, that kind of idea is really, seems to me like culturally embraced, this kind of notion of whatever you do, don't get your heart broken. But in fact, having your heart broken, might be viewed as having your heart opened, and can actually be the best thing that ever happened to you, though it might not seem like it. But it's just a word. Heartbreak. It's like it's existence, But it's very powerful. That word is very powerful, and people, I think people make a big mistake of being very scared to very scared of heartbreaking, having their hearts broken. And in doing so, they overprotect themselves. They put a kind of armor plate around themselves, or they, and in doing that, it actually restricts the possibility that life has available to them.
One day I was so sad that it made me ill. This boy said that he's sorry, but he doesn't feel like he should have, or at least that's how I thought he should. And since that day I'm still wishing he would. One day I was so mad that it made me cry. The boy I loved turned into someone else's guy. So I turned my back and walked until I couldn't see how it feels when he's not with me. So I cried my head off. I've dried my tears under the sun. I put my hands up in the air and I'm having fun. One day I was so mad that it made me ill. This boy said that he's sorry, but he doesn't feel like he should have, or at least that's how I thought he should. And since that day I'm still wishing he would.
I had a point in my life where I felt like my heart was broken, and at the time I thought it was the worst thing that ever happened to me. Now I see quite clearly how it was perhaps the greatest thing that ever happened to me. And it was so the same event, you know, that time, that point in life, seen from two different vantage points, has two completely different kind of vibes, you know. Thank God, you know, like the best thing that ever happened to me, saved my life. And stillness, you know, stillness is very powerful. It's very tempting to, you know, jump around. I know I'm a bit very much like that, so, you know, if I start to really pull myself down, I think it works better. It's just ghosts everywhere. I can't go into Fitzroy. Fitzroy is just like, it's just ghosts. You know, I can walk around those streets and just see so many places that I've either lived in or visited, or, you know, it's just sort of a strange feeling. I feel very ghosty in Melbourne. I've had a very strange history with Melbourne, I think. Because for many years I lived in the centre of Melbourne. When I first got here, I lived in its centre. So I felt very centred geographically. But then when I started working at Rusden, you're working out in the periphery, you know, where there's sheep paddock next door, for God's sake, you know. And then, you know, like you're spending decades out in this sort of peripheral space of Melbourne, you know. So that centeredness about Melbourne, it just went. And I never got it back. I never got it back. It's a funny town like that. 40% of wildlife has died since 1970. 40% of the world's wildlife in 50 years. I mean, it's pretty dramatic. You know, we're voracious. I think we've talked about this before. But I think people, you know, humans are like, I think I talked about this with you before, you know, this thing of, it's like looking at the buffalo hunters, the bison hunters that in the United States. They got onto the Great Plains, and the whole of the Great Plains were just bison. From here to the horizon, just bison. Within 10 years, they were gone. And you see pictures of these terrible stacks, these mountains of skeletons, of bison skeletons. And they didn't even use the meat, you know, they didn't use it, they just wanted the fur. It drove the Indians nuts to see all that waste, you know, so much wasted. And we can look back on that and go, oh, that's just so bad, you know, but that's what we're like, that's what humans are like, that's what we do. We're no different, we're the same bison hunters now. We just ravage.
Street lights dim the path as I walk alone in this city, pouting and wondering where all my inspiration ran off to. Who fucking knows? I really should get to sleep now. I have to work from morning till late night, driving a truck up and down the I-5 corridor, up through the Cascades. Early morning sunlight warms my skin as I walk to the corner to get a coffee, and then making my way into town to pick up my new guitar. Bum bridge with low action and some nylon strings. She sang like a choir of angels when I strummed. Took her home right away to try and lay down some tracks. I got a call from a friend I haven't heard from in a few years. He moved to Tokyo with his wife and kid and has plans to move to Alaska. One time when we were kids, we tried to run away down to the Florida coast. His dad caught us, took his keys, and drove my ass home, and that's the last time I saw him. Years and years.
Yeah, the words aren't enough. They never have been enough. And, you know, and it's, so that's why I'm sort of very suspect, you know, and that's why I like something like, you know, I like poetry a lot, because it's a very precise form of word crafting. You know, like we suddenly go to a planet 500 million light years away from it. It's called Xylon X. The Xylon X's, they're going to have invented, they're going to have a whole other story going on about, you know, their kind of version of those supernatural, of the super, you know, again, theirs will be just as crazy because it's supernatural, you know. And I just, it's like there are people on the planet here that believe that they're from outer space. Humans, you know, like people like you and me who actually think they come from outer space. You know, they're aliens who have kind of, what are they? Raelians? Raelians is one of them. And there's another mob. Now, I have a huge problem with that. It really bugs the crap out of me, because what I see it as is an incredible denial of our humanity. There are these bunch of humans who are, you know, running around saying they're from outer space. It's like, so you're saying, oh, you're something special and I'm just like this ordinary human. You know, but that denies all our shared humanity. You know, so I don't have very much time for Raelians or whatever they are, you know. But that's because they've invented this supernatural, what I would regard as this kind of supernatural premise about themselves that is just bizarre, like bizarre. But I find all those supernatural stories pretty bizarre. Well, I think in a sense that's useful, but it's probably very difficult to argue absolute truth and say, well, this is how it was. Because it probably wasn't. because it's like you say, the four intersections, depending where you are, you just see the events differently. But you know, I think it's not actually important whether things are absolutely true, or it's just what's important is that we can agree. So if three people at the intersection agree that, well, that fourth guy, he ran the red light, you know, that's probably enough. The fourth guy saying no. But the other three agree, you know, I mean, that's probably sufficient. You know, and I think that's what words, I mean, language is thought. And so, you know, what it enables is us to agree on or disagree about thought. If you know, don't expect me to have an idea about whether a tree's the tree of life or humans can be immortal if you don't believe in evolution. If you think evolution's not played a part in the you know, I mean. Because as much as my denial of the tree of life and the immortal being might seem crazy, the fact that someone doesn't believe in evolution is just as crazy. Yeah?
What?
Do you understand?